this is Eddie.
And this is Miguel.
You're listening to the God Life Culture podcast.
Yes, welcome back to another episode of the God Life Culture podcast. We are so excited that you have tuned in and that you are ready to dive into this new episode with us. Eddie, how are you feeling?
Feeling great, really excited to be back and just to share our opinions and our thoughts and all the crazy stuff that is happening. Overall, on my end, everyone is alive, everyone is healthy, and that's all I can really ask for at this time. How's everything going on your end?
Yeah, I mean, I can agree. Everything is well, thank God. Still making adjustments to all this craziness that's happening in the world and having to continue to pivot and be more creative and just, take it day by day. If there's anything that, this last few weeks, starting school up again and, being in the school building and all of those different challenges, if there's anything that I'm kind of taking out of this whole thing is that sometimes you just have to look at your schedule for the day,
Yes.
and I think sometimes it's very overwhelming when we like individuals like us who like to plan a lot and prepare and schedule, and sometimes just looking at all you have to do and then all of the little challenges and hurdles and the adjustments that you're making because of everything that's going on in this world, it can just be overwhelming. So I'm just kind of reminding myself, take it one day at a time, and give yourself kind of that grace because you're doing something, that you've never done before. I've been a teacher for 5 years,
Hmm.
and I feel like this is my first year teaching again.
Yeah.
Where you're like kind of lost, but faking it till you make it and trying your best to just go through all of these hurdles. It's a lot of adjustments that teachers are making, and not just teachers, just parents as well, and even the students,
Yes.
right? It's just a brand new totally different school year and school experience. So just taking it day by day.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to. I think that there are a lot of different professions that are going through the same scenario. I was speaking to a friend of mine who is an health insurance person, and gives services and gets people to sign up and stuff. And they're doing everything completely different as well. They're at the point where they've already told them, listen, we're going to keep you guys working from home all the way through 2021. And there were definitely challenges and hurdles that she was sharing with me that she was going through. But we even see that in our churches. We spoke about that in the very beginning of the COVID outbreak and all the different challenges and hurdles and changes that churches were doing. Now we're at a time, months into COVID, where there are still different challenges, and different moments where we do have to pivot, and make these changes and be adaptable, not only because of the different circumstances, but because of the different people that we have also visiting our churches. There is a great need that's happening out there. There's a lot of people that aren't taking this whole COVID thing serious, but on the flip side, there are people that are. And that's why it's important that as churches, we be vigilant and also on our toes and flexible to be able to pivot when necessary, to be able to be of a blessing to those people. Every time we say the word pivot, it reminds me of an episode of Friends. I don't know if you saw that one, where they're
I
trying to
have it.
get this couch up these stairs. And anyways,
Yeah,
it's just
well,
funny. There's a
completely.
shirt. There's shirts that say like pivot, pivot. That's what it's a
Right.
reference to.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I'm probably one of those few people who have only seen like one episode of Friends and not even in its entirety.
That's horrible.
So I sometimes do feel left out because I feel like a lot of people, especially like in our age and kind of like generation,
Yeah.
you know, uh, they watch Friends when it was on TV, and I remember kind of growing up and seeing it on TV, but not really like finding any interest in it
Yeah.
at the time. But I do feel like there is a portion of me that has missed out, and I think I need to really go back and check that show out.
Yeah, I'm from one of the people that got into the Friends once the reruns started, because I think Friends was on Thursday nights, and that's when we had church service Thursday night. So I was, and this is before DVRs or being able to find stuff online, all these episodes. This was back in the day where you had to leave a VCR on with a VHS tape and hope that you put the settings in to record it, which we did not have. But I'm
Yeah.
part of the people that did get on the wave a lot after, especially once it was
Right.
on Netflix. You could have just binged the whole
I know,
thing.
and it's no longer on Netflix, I think. I think
It's
it was taken
not.
out.
They moved it
Yeah.
over to HBO Max because HBO has
Mm,
that new streaming service.
yeah.
But
But I
yeah,
can definitely relate to you when you say about, having church and not being able to watch, because that was like the biggest challenge for me growing up,
yes,
that I felt like I was so separated from everybody else and so different because they were able to watch all the shows
yes,
on Tuesdays and Thursday nights, and I felt like I was always missing out because I had church.
yes,
Right. And it's probably so small and minute compared to other experiences that people have had and things that they've missed out on, or different situations like that. But it's just so funny how when you're growing up and you're a kid or even like, a preteen or whatever, those little things sometimes, it may sound silly, but I do think that sometimes the enemy likes to play on those things,
yeah,
like just the fact that, yeah, you can't watch that or you can't catch that movie because you have church tonight and you have to go to
yes,
church. And, as a kid, you may not always find church super interesting, or as a teenager, it may not really catch your attention. And you may be forced to go because your parents are bringing you and they're forcing you to go. And sometimes that's how it starts, right? With having that resentment or bitterness sometimes towards church or towards the things of the Lord. And like I said, it's kind of a stretch of an example, but I do believe that sometimes it starts off like that in those small areas where you're growing up and you're kind of just suppressing those feelings, or processing those feelings of, man, I'm so different. I have church. I can't watch it. I'm gonna miss out. Everyone's gonna talk about it, right?
yeah.
Um, you know, it starts off at an early age like that sometimes.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a stretch. I think it's especially for our time and generation years ago, it was a legitimate thing. Now, you go to church, when you get home, you can catch it, whether it's through DVR or online or wherever. You can catch any episode of any show that you missed while you were in the service. But back in the day, it definitely was something that did play a role in how, whether it was office talk, what they call a water cooler talk the next
Yeah.
day at work, or at when you got to school the next day and everybody was talking about the episode or the cliffhanger or whatever. It was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never seen that show. It's on Tuesdays or Thursdays. I'm so out of the loop. And there are people that did, in order to fit in or to be part of the conversation, would start making up that they weren't feeling good to not go to the service,
Yep.
trying to make excuses so they can catch the episode of the show, to be able to be part of the conversation the next day. And I think that that is one, the way that the enemy gets you to develop a bad habit of coming up with an excuse to not go to church because you want to, catch a show, catch a sports game, or whatever it is. And two, it also is how the enemy gets his way into your heart, because we're people that we have Christ as the center of our heart. He is what's on our pedestal. And once we start pushing him over to the edge and putting other things to be more important, and it starts in the most, what we would, what people would think was the most dumbest or simplest thing, but something like that, like coming up with an excuse to not go to church because you want to catch something, is treading on, thin ice.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And, again, I think there's always going to be something that's kind of going to call our attention, right? Or there'll kind of always be something, especially when you're growing up, that you have that FOMO, right? That fear of
Yeah.
missing out, where it's like, because of this, or because I'm doing this, with church, or I have this event going on, or I have this happening. My parents are making me go here and do this. You almost feel like you're missing out on other things, right? Or, hanging out with your friends, or certain events that would happen at night or things like that. So, again, I do think that at an early age, these are things that you go through that, hopefully we learn through them. We make the mistakes, but we learn through them, and
Yeah.
we learn how to deal with it in that it's happening at that age and that moment, right, with something so simple. But like you said, those things grow, and they grow into, other things where it just becomes like, God is not really the priority,
Yeah.
right? And it could also just be to the other extreme where we don't know how to balance. Because I do believe that, as Christians, we do need to find that right balance, right? Whether it's, we know we have our church services and our commitments and our responsibilities, but we also know that, we have our families, right? And we have to learn how to develop that healthy balance between, having our families and our, outside responsibilities away from the church, and also being faithful with what God has given us to do within the church.
Yes, I agree with that. And speaking about shows, I completely missed that the Billboard Awards happened this week. I don't know. Did you catch anything?
Yes, I did not see it live. I actually totally, forgot that it was airing, so I kind of caught some clips at the end. But I did go back and, check out kind of what people were saying. And I don't know, I know this whole award situation, right? Because of COVID, they can't gather, they can't have like live audiences, and everything's virtual and Zoom. But I have to say, I've watched like the Video Music Awards, the VMAs, and some of the other award shows, and I really do like uh the way they're doing the award shows now. And like I just feel like the artists and the performers and all of them, the people participating are kind of having to take it to the next level because there's no crowd, right? So they're
Yeah.
kind of stepping it up. I mean, even the Stellar Awards, I know I had sent you a few things about the Stellar Awards.
Yes.
It was done all virtual as well, no live audience. And I think it was just so cool to see, especially gospel artists, right? And Christian artists, use their creativity and push it to the next level. Normally at a Stellar Awards, we'll see, a Jonathan McReynolds on a guitar just singing. Well, this year we saw him, on top of a New York City building, with a small crowd of people where they were just showing like the amazing views, and it was around sunset. So it was just like, awesome to see these
Yes.
different, creative ways that these artists can, portray their music and sing
Hmm.
their songs, being that they can't really do these live performances in these arenas and, and stadiums. But I did hear that, there were a lot of, a lot of people that are for these type of award shows, and then
Yeah.
people that they're not really tuning in, not watching it because they're not feeling the whole virtual experience.
I get it. And I think that, listen, I'm always one of those people that harken back to how can the church do better, or how can a church take inspiration from things. And I think that when we see these artists, or the fact that we still see these music awards or any type of award show still happening, shows us that as a church, we should not be just sitting down.
True.
It's like, if the world is still moving forward and they're finding different ways to do things, as a church we need to be doing the same thing, if not better. So the fact that all these people are stepping up their game and finding different creative ways to exhibit and to bring out their artistry or their gifts, as a church we got to be like, all right, how are we going to continue to do the same thing with spreading
Yeah.
the gospel and reaching the souls, if we can't fill out our churches to capacity how we used to? There's a lot of people that don't want to come into the building because they still have that fear. So what are we going to do in order to, reach the masses? So, I think that's something that we should keep a mind on, or an eye out for. But the reason why I brought up the Billboard Awards was because, what was it, a year ago we had did a whole episode on Kanye West's album, when he
Yes.
released his old gospel album, and he was doing
Yes.
all the Sunday services.
Get
eh,
into it.
and we were he said, get it, it's our best. And we did this whole thing about it, of what we thought about, not only his music, the artistry, but also the idea that Kanye West is doing a gospel artist, but all to say that he actually basically swept at the
Yeah.
Billboard Music Awards.
How do you feel about that? Are you gonna ask me? You could. I have so many thoughts. Go ahead.
How do I feel about that? I don't know how to feel about that. I think that, you know, It's well. First, let me say what he won. He
Yeah,
won top gospel artist, top Christian album for Jesus is King, top gospel album for Jesus is King, top gospel song for Kanye's Follow God. How do I feel about that? Hey, congratulations. I guess
yeah.
the Academy or whoever, I don't know who votes for the billboards. Is it the fans or like
I
an
don't think it's the
academy?
fans, no. I
They
think the
thought,
Billboard Awards is based on, like,
oh, like,
chart
yes,
stats
charts. Yes,
and
yes, yes.
basically the Hot 100 on Billboard and the Hot 200,
Yes.
album
Yeah, so then that makes
charts.
sense because someone like Kanye already has notoriety. If I don't know
Right.
how you say the word. So the fact that Kanye came out with an album, period, was gonna make anything he put out chart.
Yeah.
The fact that it lasted as long as it did on the charts is a combination of it being a Kanye production plus being a Christian production where you
Right.
have non-believers checking the music out to see if he's still as good as he was, and then you
And you
have
have the believers
exactly.
who are, like, freaking out that Kanye
Yes.
West is doing this,
Yeah.
and low key are fans.
Yes.
So, are
Yes.
definitely tuning in.
Yeah,
Um,
so when it comes to how I feel about it, I guess it is what it is. It just makes sense.
yeah.
Because someone else who didn't have the fan base that Kanye did coming into it, it was gonna be a lot more difficult for them to chart as long
Yeah.
because they didn't have the fan base or the radio plays or anything like that because they were a lesser known quote unquote artist.
Yeah. I just think it's so hard to really, obviously, he did a great job on the album.
Yeah.
I like some of the songs on there. It did make an impact. I mean, Jesus is King was trending number 1 on Twitter worldwide. Like, Jesus is King was posted up in Times Square. Like, for a while, we kept seeing this phrase, Jesus is King. And although it was just because it was about his album, just that message alone, I think that was very impactful, right? It's just hard for me because I have this problem, and maybe it's not so much with Kanye, but with other people who kind of dibble and dabble in the gospel and Christian community, and kind of come in and sweep the awards, or they come in and they become kind of a face or representative of Christianity and the
Hmm.
church and the Christian community. And I think that sometimes that's not healthy. In the case of Kanye West winning these Billboard awards, if we look at chart stats and all of those things, then yes, he probably did rightfully win that award and deserved it. The other artists in those categories also did great numbers. When we look at that, Lauren Daigle also won a
Yes.
Billboard award as well. We know that "You Say," by Lauren Daigle, made history and made such a big impact as well. But within this conversation as well, Justin Bieber released a song not too long ago titled Holy, right? And I came across this song because every Friday, new music comes out. So every Friday, I like to go into like the categories to see, like, okay, like who released music, what came out. And in the Christian category, it was like Justin Bieber's song being promoted.
Mm.
And when you look at the category that it's under Christian slash gospel. So it just got me thinking, like, okay, he released a song. It's called Holy. Let's check it out. And the song really has nothing to do, with God. I wouldn't consider it to be a Christian or gospel song.
Yeah.
He does, he's talking about the love that he has for his wife and how it makes him feel. That's really what it's about. Chance the Rapper jumps in, and basically elaborates on that a little bit and mentions, about the place where he can get the best weed from, right? And this is a song that is put and being promoted as a Christian gospel
Hot
song on like
mess.
Apple Music and iTunes and things like this, and that's where sometimes for me, like even like Chance the Rapper, I remember when he released his mixtape, I forgot what it was called. I think it's The Coloring Book, it was titled, that he broke a lot of records with that. They tried to push that album like a gospel album or say that it was a gospel record. He did have Tamla Mann on there. I remember he did that performance with Tamla Mann and they sang How Great Is Our God and all of that at the I believe it was the Grammys a few years ago. The record itself was not a gospel record,
Yeah.
or did he have gospel Christian songs on there?
Yeah.
He calls himself a Christian, which is cool. Like, Justin Bieber, same thing. They call themselves Christians. That's great if that's, what you want, to be known as, or what you identify as. You're a Christian, you believe in God, you believe in Jesus. The problem that I have sometimes, is it's cool even if you want to do a Christian gospel song. If you want to come out and do an ocean, a cover to the song Oceans, and you want to release it, Justin Bieber or Chance the Rapper, you want to come in and rap about God for a whole song and it be like a purely gospel song in that moment. Great. I have a problem when it's that these people become almost like representatives or the face of Christianity or the church or gospel music, right? So when I see, images of Chance the Rapper in things that have to do with gospel, circles or Christian circles, it just kind of throws me off a bit. And I think it even throws off their fans that don't really listen to Christian and gospel music,
Hmm.
and it kind of confuses people.
Yeah.
I think it's one thing for you to be a Christian, and then I think it's another thing for you to be a Christian and use your art to spread the message of Jesus
Yes.
through your art, right?
Yeah.
And then you could be a Christian and through your art just choose to release music and talk about, whether it's love, whether it's relationships, whether it's, whatever it is, life issues, right? So I just think we have to be careful.
Yes.
Cool that Kanye, won those awards, because again, we look at numbers, he probably, did deserve it. But I just think about those other people in the categories who I know are true gospel artists who have been doing this for years, or
Yes.
that, their song is actually a gospel song and not a rap song, right? We look at Kanye's songs that are winning in these categories, top gospel or best gospel album. His song is not a really gospel, it's a rap album. Top gospel song, it's not really a gospel song, it's really a hard rap song.
Yeah.
So it just sometimes the genres too get mixed up.
Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate. And I think we circle back to this conversation anytime we speak about anything close to this subject, because I remember back when Snoop Dogg did his quote unquote gospel album as well.
Yeah,
It was one of the concerns that I had, that we both had, which is this idea of having these secular artists dip their toes into the Christian gospel world. And it's kind of like, are they doing it because it is a genuine desire and want to use their artistry to exalt Christ? Or is it looked at more as an opportunity of an avenue that they have not yet explored? At the end of the day, it really goes down to the person's intention and their heart. And
yeah,
unfortunately, we can't really
right,
say
right.
100%. But there are like situations like that with the song, from Justin Bieber, or whatever, where it kind of looks like it's either you really don't understand the concept of a Christian gospel song, or you very clearly know what you're doing, you don't care, and you're
Yeah.
just looking at it as an avenue to, to have more territory in.
Yeah, and I don't think he himself pushed it as a gospel song or a Christian song. It was more of the platforms that it was on and the
Yeah.
genre and the categories.
But somebody
Um,
somebody selects that for you.
right, right. Right. So it's just, and it's not the first time we see this, right? And with some of these people who profess to be Christians, where, they profess these things, they'll maybe release a song, a Christian song, a gospel song, and then they'll go back to like, being on another track with another artist where they're talking about, all these, crazy type of stuff or whatever. And, again, it's like you say, sometimes it really just boils down to, you know, giving believers and kind of confusing the world with what a believer or Christian really looks like, right? Or how they act, or what their kind of how they express and use their art. So it's
Yeah.
just something to that's cool to just keep in mind. And again, I'm totally for them jumping on a Christian song if they want to. And at the end of the day, when we talk about artists, they use music to express thoughts and express their emotions. And who are we to kind of tell somebody, no, you can't express your thoughts about God, you know?
Yes.
But I just think then there are also certain boundaries that should be kind of clear and established, where we're not looking at these people like, oh, they're completely like a gospel artist or a Christian artist, let's follow them.
Yep.
But speaking of music, I just noticed, I think it was like a week ago, I follow, and I think people know them through YouTube more than anything. Maverick City
Yes.
music, where they're basically all of like young people kind of together, and then it looks like it's like one big jam session.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they do a lot of worship songs. They released a new album, Maverick City Volume 3 Part 2, right? And great songs on there. One of the songs really stuck out to me. It's called To You. And I don't know if you've heard it. It's called To You. It's featuring Chandler Moore. And I really love the perspective of what they presented in the song. They kind of talk about the prodigal son. And he brings up a point in the middle of the song that I think was super cool. He talks about how when the prodigal son kind of left and took all of his inheritance and spent it all and had nothing. How the Bible says that the father saw him from afar, and how the father ran to him, and he kind of used just kind of the that metaphor of running to the father and the father running to you
Mhm.
in this song, and using it, obviously saying where I'm gonna go back to you, but then he kind of flips it and presents it as if it were the father talking to the prodigal son. And it just got me thinking, simple lyrics, nothing crazy out of this world, right? But super profound. And just the fact that I think that many times when we view that story, we focus on the prodigal son and we focus on him returning. We focus on the father, right? Seeing him from afar. But the idea of the father kind of running back to his son once again, I
Mhm.
think sometimes that's a detail that we kind of overlook, or just kind of hurry up and get to the part where they're celebrating, right? And I think it's easier for us to feel the connection or the need to run back to God,
Yes.
right? And to do everything within our reach to reach God and get to God. And I truly think that there are moments where God comes running to us,
Mhm.
and whether that's using people, or through dreams, putting people in your path, or you seeing something coming across a certain song or a message or a sermon. I think there are definitely times where God comes running to us, and whether it's running to us to save us, or running to us to just kind of like embrace us and let us know, like, I got you, like you're gonna be okay, everything is gonna be fine. I just think it's something that we need to just kind of stop and reflect on sometimes. The idea that even when I don't have the strength to run to him, or even if I don't have if I don't feel that confidence that he would
Mhm.
want to receive me, you know there are these moments where God will come running to us.
Yes, and I think that, I mean, I was, as you was talking, I was thinking about various occasions, because it's not only once that it's happened in my life where a situation like that has happened, where it was God running to me, whether it was to embrace me, whether it was to rescue me, whether it was to just remind me of His love and promises when I was either too in my feelings or too focused on what the surroundings were. He showed up to me, and I think that that's really cool. With Maverick City, I came on, they showed up on my scene with their volume 3 part 1. I think it was first, like, A Man of Your Word was the first song that I heard from them. And then when I heard them do Promises is an awesome song as well. I had no idea that they released the volume 2, so as you were talking, I was also downloading it, and I'm definitely looking
Yeah.
forward to listening to it. Their music videos are also good. It's like you said, it's a jam session. It's a bunch of worshipers and musicians, and I guess just people just in a room jamming out and just worshiping God. And I think that one of the really special things about how they do stuff, especially for volume one, I haven't seen or heard about volume two, is that they allow opportunity for true spontaneous worship, where they just flow and they go, and obviously they come in with the plan on, okay, we're going to sing the song, these are the verses, these are the choruses or whatever, but you can tell when it shifts, when it's now
Yeah.
we're no longer just focusing on the parameters of the song, but it's also shifting into and connecting into what in the spiritual atmosphere is happening. You know, I remember there's this song that I heard from them as well, where as the person is about to sing, they did this prayer where they were just praying like, God, may this worship, may these songs reach the people that we never even were thinking of that it was going to reach, as it
Wow.
has already done. So it's going into it with that confidence and knowing that I'm about to pour out of my spirit and I'm just going to give my all. But I also understand the opportunity that God has given us to not only put the music out, audio, but also these music videos that, you know, may go viral or may come across somebody's, you know, internet dashboard randomly, and how it's going to bless and minister to them. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely check it out. I will be looking into their volume two, and that song as well, because I think that is a great message to understand and comprehend that yes, there are many times in our lives where we go running to God, but there are also times where God goes running to you, whether it's to rescue you, embrace you, lift you up, guide you. And don't be surprised when those moments happen.
Yeah, and there's just something also just so powerful when it just comes to worship in general, right? Like just that idea. And I think, so many times we forget its power. We forget how deep it truly is, right? We forget oftentimes because we just get so overwhelmed with everything that we forget the power that lies in worship, and especially in these times and what we're living in. And we have all of the debates going on, we have all of the meetings and all of the talk about this election. And we're just a few weeks away from that day. And it's just I saw a post, someone saying basically, don't let the election divide you from your family and your friends. It's like, remember, it's not all about this, you
Mhm.
know and it's just sometimes so easy to let or to allow all of these things to cloud our vision and overwhelm us. And just this past week, just a lot of things happening, at school, and putting together a children's event as well, and just so many things and life things that happening, and things that you're praying about and waiting for. And I could feel myself, because I know, you feel it when it starts to come upon you, like that feeling of just feeling overwhelmed and anxious, like when it starts coming over you. And it was just funny because I was sitting one day just sitting on the couch, just kind of like reflecting on everything I had to do. And, that's when I put that song on. I found it, I went on YouTube just to put music on. I found it and I clicked on it, put it on, and it served as a reminder for me, because the way I guess you could say, entered that moment, right, was not the same way I exited that moment,
Mm.
you know? And sometimes, we grow up in church, we grow up knowing and hearing these things, and we truly do forget sometimes, like, yo, this attitude I have right now, I need to really go into worship right now, because I know that worship will shift that. You know, it's like I know I have these responsibilities and I have a meeting I have to go to. I have, a leadership meeting or I have a youth meeting to go to, and I'm not feeling it at this moment. I'm about to throw on this song because I know that worship shifts my atmosphere and my attitude. And I think sometimes, it takes for you to do that to yourself, because I could have easily sat there and sat feeling overwhelmed, sat feeling anxious, sat there feeling, creating lists about everything I needed to do and what I needed to get done and all the deadlines and all these things. And instead, I kind of took that moment to just worship and remind myself of the power that lies when you worship and when you do that. So I just think it's sometimes good, even, we have strong prayer lives and strong, we go to church and do all of these things. Sometimes it just takes that moment of worship to really clear your mind.
Yes. Yeah, and I agree with that. When it comes to worship, it is a way for us to just the great thing about worship is that when you're worshiping God, you may not be saying exactly what it is that you're feeling, but God understands what you're trying to say. So as you're singing the song or as you're connected into the worship that is happening, God is understanding all your stresses, all your worries, all the things that you're concerned about, all your needs, anything that that's running through your mind or it's heavy on your heart. Although you may not be physically expressing it, there is a connection that happens that allows through the intervention of the Holy Spirit for that interpretation to happen, and I think it's very important and very awesome. And when you feel overwhelmed or you feel stressed or you're feeling angry or you're feeling down or whatever it is, sometimes the simple thing as putting on a worship song can have the impact needed to get you through to the next day.
Yep. And I know this is we kind of talked about everything in this episode, kind of catching up and catching
Yeah.
up with everyone. But if there's something that you take out of this, the challenge would just be, in the midst of the craziness,
Yes.
push through with your worship, and just kind of remember that there's a song that says, I'm coming back to the heart of worship. And I grew up when that song came out, and I remember for a while it was just so played out, and I was like, oh my goodness, are we gonna hear this song again, or they're gonna sing it again, right? But when you really think of the essence of that song and coming back to the heart of worship where it's really is all about God, sometimes, your spirit needs to be reminded of that. So
Yes.
definitely during these times and during these, uncertain times, unprecedented times, times that, are trying our souls, right? Let's remember to just push through with our worship.
Absolutely. So thank you once again for tuning in and joining us for this adventure. As always, you can link up with us.
Yes, on all our social media on Facebook and Instagram at God Life Culture Podcast. And definitely subscribe to our podcast wherever you are listening right now. Go hit that subscribe button so you can get notified every time we drop an episode. Leave us a rating, leave us
Yes.
a review. Let us know that you are listening, and be sure to tune in for our next episode.
Yeah. So thank you once again for tuning into the God Life Culture podcast. That's God Life Culture. Until next
See
time.
ya.
Bye.